know about you, but I'm a huge documentary fan, but even I know that they're pretty boring for the most part. So let's make learning in history not boring. I'm going to do my best to tell the history of Walt Disney World, but make it brief and entertaining so you actually retain most of what you hear. So what are you waiting for? Grab your snack, go sit in your YouTube chair. Yes, we all have one. I know you do too. Go get in it and get ready for some Disney magic in 3, 2, 1.
To all those that come to this happy place, welcome.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for coming back to the channel. Happy Place Studios is always happy to have you. So, for your own discretion, please check out the description below. I have all the chapters in there. Even though this is going to be brief, I want to make sure that your time is spent wisely. So if you need to guide yourself throughout the chapters, go ahead and click that below. Also, if you're new here and you've stumbled upon my channel, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out, and go ahead and smash that like button as well. But let's get into it. So like I said, this video is going to be brief, entertaining, and hopefully you actually learn something from this as well. And the goal is to kind of be around 10 minutes. So let's see if I can make this happen. In order to know everything there is about Walt Disney World itself, you have to learn from the past first. Just like the quote says, you can't move forward unless you learn from the mistakes of your past. And this is exactly what Walt Disney himself had to do when building his masterpiece, Walt Disney World. So, we all know that Disneyland was a huge success and has been around since 1955, opening July 17th of that year. But here's the problem. They were rushing to make things happen. The first day was kind of a complete, utter disaster. People jumped over the fence. The concrete wasn't completely hardened. People were breaking hills. They ran out of food. They ran out of water. Things was a nightmare. And not only to say that, to the least, after things got fixed, Walt Disney noticed himself that he would find characters out of place, not in their own story, wandering through areas that they shouldn't be wandering. People of Tomorrowland would be in Adventureland. Why was this happening? Well, they didn't plan accordingly for cast members to move throughout the park without being seen, and they kind of just had to move freely wherever they could to get to their next destination. As much of a success Disneyland was, Walt saw major flaws and was determined to fix his mistakes. With that, the dream of Walt Disney World was born. Originally supposed to be in the Gulf South in the home state of Louisiana, where I'm from, it was eventually moved to Disney World's current location in Orlando, Florida. Why was it moved to there? Originally, Walt himself went to Louisiana because he wanted a centralized location, but he went there under the precedence of his own name. So people started raising the prices like crazy, but he learned from the mistake, and when he went searching for elsewhere, he saw cheap land in Orlando, Florida. It was just swampland, and it was going to take a lot of money to develop it. So he went there under the names of different companies, so you wouldn't know that Walt Disney himself had to buy the land. This saved him millions of dollars, and it was a great lesson that he learned moving forward when he had to buy future land. So let's get in the construction of this masterpiece. To fix the first problem, Walt didn't want characters to be seen out of place. So what was the first thing that he did? He actually built a ground level that we consider underground and secret utilidors that characters could use to move throughout the parks. These utilidors were actually designed by Navy ship captains to make sure that they could withstand the test of time. Here, cast members and characters could move freely underground while people walked above, so they could move from either side of the park with never being seen out of place. Not only did Walt want this to be a masterpiece, he wanted it to be efficient enough that it kind of ran like clockwork, and it didn't take much to keep things moving. Once you taught something to one person, it could be taught over and over again. It also started with the hub and spoke method that you kind of see in Disneyland, but even more drawn out here in Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. The ultimate power of the hub and spoke method was to draw people's attraction to the end of the tunnel. Here we had things like the Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom Cinderella Castle that would pull you down Main Street. From there, it would break off into Adventureland, into Tomorrowland as well, with the ultimate goal to keep people moving and never standing in one place to back up traffic. To make the efficiency even better, Walt made sure that he designed the park with easy access, but to draw people's attention elsewhere. So, if you weren't supposed to see things that were kind of hidden in plain sight, they used colors to help hide these or pull people's attention to somewhere they should be looking. So, Disney uses these colors to hide maybe construction or buildings that you really shouldn't see unless maybe it was captured in a photograph. Walt was so huge on efficiency that he even brought in a high-speed trash system. That way families would never actually experience trash being moved throughout the park, and that it would travel underground beneath their feet, going at around 30 miles an hour out of the park, and it would make sure that the park was clean and efficient at all times. As the park was being built, Walt wanted to make sure that the ultimate story would be told in Disney's Magic Kingdom. Here, he went through the process of complete and total immersion to make sure guests never felt like they were just in some random theme park. You would get hit with smells and sounds that were completely artificial to make sure that you felt like you were in the presence of where you should be. Also, land transitioning through forced perspective would make sure that you felt as though if you were in Adventureland, you were in the jungle or maybe moving into somewhere tropical. If you were in Fantasyland, it seemed like you were in a storybook. And if you were in Tomorrowland, it was like you were living in the present day for 20 years down the road. Not only was Walt's big thing for storytelling, he also wanted to make sure that the complete total guest experience was met at all times. With that being said, Walt built resort hotels near the Magic Kingdom that would ensure that the guests were always near the things that they wanted to do 24/7. So when they woke up, the first thing they had to do was not drive, was to just take a quick walk or a quick ride over to the park. Speaking of getting to the parks, Walt wanted to make sure that not only was the efficiency inside the park, but it was the efficiency outside the park that started the entire process for the family vacation. So he ensured that there would be multiple forms of travel to get you to and from the park, including that of ferry boat, monorail, and even bus transportation to make sure that you could quickly go to and from the park. And if you wanted to, you could even take a quick stroll about 5 to 10 minutes over to Magic Kingdom to the nearest resort hotel. Can you tell? Walt was kind of obsessed with making Walt Disney World perfect in any way and every way possible to ensure the guest experience was always top-notch. Not only was the experience for the guest important, but it was also important to keep the cast members happy and satisfied at all times as well. So how did Walt help do this? Similar to what they do in Disneyland, a Kiss Goodnight would ensure that the guest experience not only ended with a bang, but it made sure that it would push people out of the parks at an appropriate time so cast members could get off at an effective and efficient time frame. With as much work that Walt put into making sure that Walt Disney World would be a complete and utter hit, sadly he never got to see the creation come to life. He died in December of 1966, leaving his brother Roy to finish his dream. But that's enough of the sad part. Remember, this is supposed to be entertaining. So, Roy got up on his high horse and made sure that the project would come to a complete and utter end the way it's supposed to be, and that's with all the bells and whistles and all the magic that Walt could possibly pump into the parks. Another thing on top of this, just to kind of add the spice, was Walt had an idea for Epcot and an experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Basically a utopia where people would always be pushing the inventions and innovation of tomorrow. Many of Walt's efficiency ideas that he had in place for Magic Kingdom would also have been put into place for Epcot. Sadly, Epcot never turned into the utopia because, of course, the untimely death of Walt Disney himself. I've got to get away from death, so let's move on. So, what does all this information ultimately lead up to? It leads up to Magic Kingdom being one of the most efficiently ran theme parks in the entire world, with many companies chasing after them ever since. Walt Disney World has been a grand success and has been open ever since, only closing a few times since 1971 due to either hurricanes or maybe some other form of violence that was happening in the world, not counting the 2020 epidemic of COVID. So yeah, a few times, but not very many. Walt Disney World is like a fortress, and it's a safe haven for many people that live in Florida to escape natural disasters. Walt Disney World today still leads to be one of the most innovative projects ever created by man, inspiring the youth from all around the world every time they visit the parks to hopefully chase after a better tomorrow that will lead to a brighter future for all of us. So, how did I do? That was a lot of information. Hopefully, I got it condensed down to around 10 minutes. If you enjoyed this, if it was entertaining and not boring in any way, shape, or form, please leave a like on this video. Leave a comment as well. Let me know what I can do better and what you're interested in. I'm more than willing to create things that you guys are wanting to look into. For now, go out, be you, be great, and I'll catch you in the next one.